This is Hemet.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast to support this show. Get your bonus and ad-free episodes. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Excellent. I have so many fun things to tell you about.
Oh, boy. Can't wait.
I
Happy
know.
to be here,
A couple
as
of
always.
them have good news.
What?
I know. It's weird.
I'm suspicious.
I know. Let's start with one of those since you like starting on good news stories-ish.
That's news to me.
Sure.
News to me? Sorry, that wasn't even a pun.
No. So we've talked in Ohio that there is this group called LifeWise Academy that offers Bible classes to students. They can ditch school a certain part of the day, maybe once a week or something.
Yeah.
And they can be transported to like a local church where they get Sunday school lessons.
Because the problem with school is that they have too much time on their hands in school.
And students have nothing better to learn. Mm-hmm. And basically the way LifeWise works is they say, hey, churches are allowed to do this, but we'll take it out of your hands and make it easier for you. So you pay us some amount of money, they say to the churches. We'll take care of curriculum, staff, we'll do background checks. I don't know what the deal is, who transports the students from schools to the church. But they work all that out. They get their dose of biblical indoctrination. Then they return to school.
Where they can indoctrinate the rest of their students.
Yeah. And those things are technically, this is called released time. Those policies are generally religiously neutral. Anyone can offer these classes. Parents have to sign a permission slip to let their kids participate. Schools have nothing to do with them. They just say, we're not going to punish you if you go off campus during this period.
I'm still confused why this is a thing that, like, it feels like there's so many moving pieces to this that it feels like a bad idea overall.
Yeah, and right now it's optional. School districts in Ohio, at least, don't have to allow them to do this at all. But if you allow it, the assumption is this is good for Christians because they're the only ones with the infrastructure in place to make all this stuff happen. And they also, the rules say you have to, if kids miss a class, they have to make up all the work. They can't skip certain core classes. It has to be like an elective. Okay, we've talked about that in the past.
You said anybody can do this. So I could run over there and be like, oh, here's Jess's poetry corner.
Yes.
Come join me for an hour a week, and we'll read this.
But think about what you have to do to make that happen.
Edna St. Vincent Millay.
You got to get enough parents to sign in, to sign up for your class.
I'm very persuasive.
You have to find a way to get kids from their schools to wherever it is you're hosting all this stuff. And that's a lot to ask for. And that's why most groups don't do it. And the reason we've talked about LifeWise is they have chapters now in more than, this is from NBC News from earlier this year, more than 300 schools in a dozen states teaching 35,000 public school students.
Oof, that's so many kids.
Yeah. A different article more recently said it was 525 schools in 23 states.
Oh, boy.
So, talked about that. That's what they're doing.
Yep.
And one of the reasons we talked about this a couple of months ago is because in Ohio, there is the Westerville City Schools, and they were... they had LifeWise. They had a lot of kids missing. But one of the complaints is that when kids leave to go there, think about this. If you're leaving the same class every week, you might be academically behind your peers, even if you're skipping an elective class. If you're leaving
it's the same class every week,
probably
right?
Same time every week, unless your schedule rotates for some reason, which isn't what happens at most schools. Release time also makes life harder for teachers because if half your class is gone on a certain day, you can't just move on because all these kids are behind. So you have to redo everything you're supposed to teach.
Wait, I thought teachers were just glorified babysitters. Hold on.
Only in Texas. And then even if their kids can't skip required classes, they can skip art or music or gym, which implies that all of those subjects and all of those teachers are not nearly as important for their development. But more than anything, and this is what happened in Westerville, there was the peer pressure. If kids take this Bible course and they're coming back to school with prizes and candy, they're going to convince their other friends to go too, even if their parents don't want them to. It's not illegal, but that's a strain on families who are religious minorities.
Right.
So you can imagine a public school where at some point in the day, the only kids left behind are Muslim and Jewish, and they're sitting in class because the Christians have gone off somewhere.
See, now
it's not great.
That's a Left Behind series I would read.
That is, I'm pretty sure, how Left Behind works.
They just get on a bus and go to church.
Yeah, with the
That's what
exception
the
that,
rapture is.
that some evil Christians would also be left behind.
Oh, sure.
But anyway.
I love the idea that the rapture is like a 1987 yellow school bus. Everybody's actually like
The
stand
Christian
in line to
version
get
of it.
on, and then the bus driver turns on the lights to make everybody shut up because everyone's being too loud. Did your bus driver do that?
I don't think they would be allowed in the Christian Magic School Bus for Miss Frizzle to have that much autonomy.
Oh, that's fair.
Like, they would need a man driving the bus.
So you think Miss Frizzle is going to be like crossing the river Styx with us? She's what's that guy?
You know she would.
What's my dude's name? The guy who, it doesn't matter. Go ahead. Done
Well
with this
done.
bit. I can't think of the
Well
stupid
done.
guy.
So, in Westerville City Schools this past October, they decided to get rid of release time entirely. They just said, you know what? It's not working for us. It creates
Styx.
more problems than it solves. So we'll just get rid of it because that's also religiously neutral. So it's not anti-Christian. And they're allowed to do that. In response, Republican lawmakers have tried to pass a bill. They've proposed legislation that would force school districts to offer release time classes throughout the state.
Oh, good.
Okay. So now,
Karen. Charon. That's the guy who helps you across
there you go.
with Cerberus, his
So now,
three-headed
here
dog.
is what happened in the city of Marysville. This
I'm
is in
so
the
sorry, Greek
Marysville
nerds.
Exempted Village School District. They have this in their school district. They have release time. LifeWise operates in their district. So now the Satanic Temple has come in.
And this is just high school, right?
This is actually Edgewood Elementary School, where they are taking these kids
you're
out of
putting
class.
elementary school kids on a bus once a week?
Yep.
God, that's going to take 6 hours each time.
Yeah. So now the Satanic Temple has come in and said, hey, we're offering classes
Funny you should mention classes.
in our Hellion Academy of Independent Learning. I waited till you were drinking coffee to say that.
Yeah, I was doing a spit take.
Yep. Hail. The Hellion Academy. This is something, you know how they do After School Satan as well.
Sure,
this is a program they've also operated in Pennsylvania as like an alternative to that as well. But basically what Hail is, the way they describe it in their flyers, it's a weekly program. It is self-directed, but it teaches kids compassion, empathy, problem solving, critical thinking, things like that.
Wow.
And so why this school? Why this district? Because LifeWise is set up there too. And they're like, all right, we want to give you an alternative.
Sure.
And I was reading when a local news channel posted about this program on Facebook, directing them to the news website. I was looking at the comments. One comment I liked, horrible. I would fight that with all I have.
Wow.
Another one, this is precisely why we should officially be a Christian nation.
Oh, such brave.
And those are random people. But when I was reading the actual article, didn't actually have a ton of opposition. Just one parent who, I don't know what they're actually thinking here, but they agreed religious instruction doesn't belong in public schools. But let me see if you can parse this.
Okay.
This is Crystal Dill, a Marysville parent with 3 kids in the district. At first, I thought it was a joke, talking about Hail. Honestly, I would prefer that it be separated. I don't think that either one has any business being in school. I would like to be the one in charge of knowing exactly what my kids are being taught. And parents like her said the satanic symbols in the flyers give her and possibly children the wrong impression of what is being taught. She said, keep in mind that the people coming in for these groups and organizations, whether it be LifeWise or this Hail Academy, they are not being fully vetted by the school. Which is accurate because it's not a school program. But it's like this lady in real time.
Yeah.
Was
Is like doing the math.
Is trying to figure out like, you know what? I don't like these Satanists in my
Wait a
school.
second.
But maybe the solution is we shouldn't have this at all.
Wait a second.
And then,
I love when they stumble on the solution.
yeah. And then I clicked on how do you sign up for the Hail classes, and they have a form where parents can opt in. Honestly, I read through this thing.
Pay? Like, who's funding this?
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Right. If you
Good for
look
them.
at the flyer, like the form that you parents have to fill out, it says, parents, your kids will learn benevolence and empathy, critical thinking, problem solving, creative expression, personal sovereignty, compassion. All you got to do is fill out the permission slip and all that. And the amazing thing is, LifeWise seems well aware that they have no business saying this group cannot exist.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
They actually understand what's going on?
They saw what happened in Westerville in the same state where parents got so mad at what LifeWise was doing and knew there was a possibility that non-Christian groups could start getting involved in big numbers.
Right.
And they decided to fight with the school board and said, you just shut this down. And the school board said, yeah, we're shutting this whole thing down.
Wow.
So what did the CEO of LifeWise, his name is Joel Penton, what did he say in a statement? LifeWise is not fearful of other organizations offering release time for religious instruction. We believe all families should have the opportunity to choose religious study during school hours, and we trust parents to make the best choice for their children.
Wow.
Which is both, yeah, fine.
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
With him, there wasn't one. I mean, I think it's a smart move on his part because LifeWise has all kinds of money at its disposal, hundreds of schools they work with.
Yeah.
The Satanists have literally this one tiny group.
Yeah. It's
And
like
so
a
far,
dude.
so far. But like, that's it. Even
Yeah.
he knows, all right, fine. Let him have this one thing.
Sure.
And whatever, we still outnumber you. We have all the money.
So you think it's the scale is why he's not feeling threatened?
I think that's part of it, but also he knows that the only way they can get away with this right now is by saying this is a religiously neutral thing the district is offering. We're taking advantage of it. And right now we're the only groups with the resources to take advantage of it. Just because one other group, maybe a few others, decide to offer, it doesn't mean they're as popular as we are. They're not going to be able to scale like we can. So you know what? Why am I going to act like I'm upset with this?
Right.
Because that's exactly the thing that could get both of us kicked out of this district. And he knows that's bad for business for him. So I think he said not just the correct thing, but the strategic
prudent thing, yes.
Yes, on his part. Now, the sponsor of the bill to mandate released time in Ohio, he's also aware of all this.
Oh.
His name is Gary Click, and he's a Republican, and this is what he said. He told the Columbus Dispatch that he believed the Satanic Temple was attempting to scare legislators away from adopting the bill. I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of parents out there saying, yes, send my kids to Satan. I really just don't think that is going to be a reality. It's more of a publicity stunt.
I guess.
Couple things about that.
I mean, he's not incorrect.
He's not totally wrong, but he's kind of giving away the game in terms of how he's saying it. Because if non-Christians participate in this program, this guy assumes it's part of a strategy to scare legislators from supporting his bill through a publicity stunt.
Which it is.
It is, but also why is it a publicity stunt? Because they're offering their lessons in Satanism, their version of Satanism, I should say. But even if it's a Muslim group doing it, what's he going to say then?
Yeah.
Like, what? Are you trying to scare legislators away from adopting my bill? I think he would be just as mad if it was any other group. And he's implying this bill is meant to promote Christianity only. Like, he's kind of implying that with a little wink.
Totally. Absolutely he is.
And then he added that this isn't going to work because no one's going to sign up for it. He said they could have already done this, and they haven't done it. So history tells us they're still not going to do it. And they might make an effort. I won't call it a noble effort, but they might make an effort.
So sorry. I'm so sorry. I got stumbled up on that first sentence. Because they haven't done it yet, history tells us they'll never do it.
Yeah.
This is why critical thinking skills are important, because that's not what history do. It's not a magic
There's a lot
ball.
of firsts in history all the time. That's how it works.
That's
And
what
then-
history literally is. What a dum-dum.
And then he added, most parents really would rather see their kids doing good, healthy things rather than satanic things. So I really am extremely skeptical.
Oh no, my line of satanic nerds is bad.
And again, what were the satanic things in question? Compassion,
Benevolence.
empathy, benevolence, arts and crafts. That was
Personal
it.
sovereignty.
Yeah. Community service projects. They were also
Boo,
advertising those.
I hate community.
And what he would rather see them doing is good, healthy things like learning the earth is 6,000 years old. So that's what he believes. All those good things stand in stark opposition to his brand of Christianity.
Yeah.
I appreciated.
So what do you think is going to happen?
I appreciated that the Columbus Dispatch, they can't just say this dude is full of shit. But what they did do is they said, like, within a paragraph, the Satanic Temple doesn't worship Satan, but rather promotes equity, empathy, and social justice.
I love that it's the Church of Satan to get a rise out of Christians, and it works every
single time. It's a trump card. I want you to look at the logo.
Make me get up
for Hale, because I want you to know what they are opposing, and. This is the boogeyman they've created. Please tell the listeners.
It's like the cutest little baby goat, like an emoji goat, almost like a little cartoon character.
Yep. Great artwork. Seriously.
Oh, you guys, that's so
We'll post it on the Facebook page.
Oh, that's good.
So here's the question. Will anyone actually sign up for these classes?
Who cares? I'm getting that tattooed.
So I asked the Satanic Temple, like, is anyone signing up for this, or is this just all publicity, right? And what I was told is they have already received several permission slips with interest from at least like 4 or 5 parents at the school, and parents who homeschool their kids in the community but are looking for other activities to get their kids involved in.
Interesting.
Then I asked, like, so where are you all doing this? Because the LifeWise people are going to local churches. Where are you all holding stuff? They said at a library. Like, they've reserved space to do it.
Very satanic of them.
And this is interesting. One bit of pushback. Check this out. This is on Facebook from a guy named Jermaine Ferguson. I find it very interesting that the anti-LifeWise group has targeted the elementary school that my kids attend and is shameless in their name, Hellion Academy, sponsored by the Satanic Temple. It is not a true religion. It is a mockery and a maneuver to attack a program that has caused no issues and is supported by the community at large. The same folks who have told me that they will never support a levy, I guess a tax for public school funding of some sorts, until LifeWise is removed, are now causing a disruptive ploy during an already difficult time in our community. Do not join their cause. Reject the call and focus on what is authentic to our community. Who is this dude? Who is he?
Oh, this guy who
this
was
guy
talking?
I just
thought
read
you were
you.
still. I don't know, but I really like that he's like, it's so funny they came to my kids' elementary school. So what I'm saying is this guy has main character syndrome. This has to be
They did
like,
it to go after him.
Yeah,
personally.
exactly. Finally. Golly, is he like the superintendent?
He's on the school board. Oh. This was posted on his personal page. And again, none of what he said made any sense. The Satanists are participating in a program the district has decided to offer. They did not target an elementary school, unless you want to say the Christians did too. They haven't done anything disruptive, unless you believe the existence of non-Christians is inherently problematic. And this guy also thinks that if Satanists do what a Christian group is already doing, then it's an attack on the program. How? I don't know. But this dude actually has the power to end the program altogether if he wants. He can stop the Satanists if he wants to, and by urging his colleagues to vote down the release time program. He's not going to, but yeah. So anyway, Hale classes are slated to begin this month in December. And if nothing else, I think it's great that non-Christian groups are challenging conservative Christians at their own game.
I do keep forgetting that it's called Hale. And every time you say like Hale classes, I'm like, yeah, Hale classes, Hale.
So there we go.
Wow. So what do you think's gonna what's next steps? Like, are we?
It'll happen for the duration of the school year. They'll have their handful of meetings over the course of the next several months. And that's probably it. It either dies down and no one cares, or people raise hell about it. And then
we get to talk about it more. And then maybe the school district decides maybe we should stop this altogether. I don't think they're going to go that route. No, they tend not to.
But I hope it's good and safe, and that it takes, I hope it takes off without a hitch.
Yeah, that's awesome. That logo is so good and so funny.
All right, let's talk about Michigan for a second.
Okay.
There is a state rep. His name is Josh Shriver.
Where on the
I don't know.
Is he?
It's all of it because he's part of the government. So this is State Rep Josh Shriver, and I'm just going to read you what he posted this week on the Twitter.
I feel like I have bad associations with Joshes in policy in politics. I don't think there's a lot of good Joshes out there, is there?
Yeah, Gottheimer's a very moderate Dem who's basically a Republican. I can't
Hawley.
think. Josh Hawley, yeah, of course.
Sorry, Joshes. Not a good one of you in the bunch.
So Josh Shriver posted this on Twitter. Make gay marriage illegal again. This is not remotely controversial nor extreme.
You know what? I saw this somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure you did because people got pissed.
Yeah.
The funniest thing about this, before we get into why it's so not funny, is that the thing he tweeted right before this was a week prior, and he said, turning off all my devices for 7 days, leaving them at home, and going on a trip with family. Will pray, read, write, and spend quality time with family for Thanksgiving. Grateful for Lord Jesus Christ. Yada, yada, yada.
When people say they're going to pray, do they mean like literally they're just going to like sit and meditate?
Well,
like
which
people
would
say,
be
I'm gonna go
not
off to
spending
pray.
quality time with your family.
Well, I mean,
so
I guess
pick and
if you're all
choose your
praying
lane.
together in a silent circle,
Then
that
it's called a
sounds
cult. Yeah. But like this guy goes away for a week for Thanksgiving to be with his family, and then he returns,
Just like the
picks up
Pilgrim
his
did.
phone after a week,
Sure.
and he's like, "Gay marriage must end."
My prayers
What the hell?
have been answered.
What happened over the week that
Oh
this
boy,
is what
one
you've
of
been
his
thinking
kids
about?
definitely came out to him.
Right. So, to be clear, undoing marriage equality, which would be controversial and extreme, has actually been a concern ever since conservative Supreme Court justices basically said outright it should be repealed in the wake of overturning Roe. If abortion rights is up for grabs based on where you live, they very much want to do the same thing with same-sex marriage. And
But I just don't like Kamala. There's just something about her that
she laughed, and then I decided to vote third party.
Finger on it.
Yeah. What reason are you going to choose for why horrible people chose?
It must be the laugh or the they them thing.
Right, which she didn't do at all. Okay, so this dude, who is this
is
guy?
gonna be so bad. Oh Jesus Christ! Oh my God!
We
Sorry,
we haven't
Quick
even
existential-
started. We
quick
haven't even started
I just
the
meant
second
world.
Trump term
I just
yet.
had to have a quick existential crisis. Now I'm back. Let's
you
do
go.
this thing.
So who is this guy?
Okay.
He just won his second election to the Michigan State House by a very comfortable margin in a red district.
What?
And Republicans in the state managed to win back the state house, which defeats a Democratic trifecta. So they won't be able to, Republicans won't be able to pass any laws opposing civil rights. But bills that could have gone anywhere to help people are not going to get through that chamber of the legislature. But during his 2 years so far in office, this guy has established a reputation as someone who basically says all kinds of idiotic things in the name of Jesus.
Has he declared a lot of like National Day of Prayers or National
that
Day of
type.
Abstinence?
But you're assuming he gets shit done. He doesn't really. But the reason
You
we've
don't
talked
have to get anything done to say, hey, it's a National Day of Prayer today. That's literally the least possible a person
that still
could
requires
do.
him filling out a proclamation. and
Like a
stuff.
tweet.
Yeah. So last year we talked about this guy because just before Christmas last year, the West Michigan chapter of the Satanic Temple, they requested and got permission to put up an altar of Baphomet outside the Capitol because it's an open forum and they allowed a nativity
Was this a really
scene.
dope one that looked like a mirror ball?
It
Crystal
did
ball?
look pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was like the mirror ball like we saw in Iowa last
okay,
year.
is that what I'm
but
thinking of then?
it looked badass because everything they put up ends up looking badass, right?
Oh, they should put out the cute little goat.
They should.
I
So
would love that.
this guy, Shriver, he was one of 7 Republicans in the state who then wrote a letter to the Michigan Capitol Commission saying you need to remove this display entirely because it contradicts the, quote, foundational principles of our nation. And also it's a, quote, public display of evil.
Hammett, for a second, I thought this was a letter being sent to somebody who had like a cross up on their government property, and I forgot that no, this is just a dum-dum.
This is just
who
a
just
dum-dum.
has no idea how laws do.
And then this dude,
Yeah.
knowing that a letter's not going to work because my base doesn't know how to read, he then made a video in front of the display claiming it promotes Satan, which is not how the Satanic Temple works, and Satan, quote, lies, steals, kills, and destroys.
God, it must be so cool to go through your life with such as as wrong as it is, such a clear idea of good and evil, because truly, like,
and then supporting all the people who lie.
Yeah,
steal.
to like get your panties in a bunch about a statue when. I mean, it just boggles the mind. It simply boggles the mind. The things that these people care about.
I felt the same way when Biden pardoned his son. It's like, okay, we can have a discussion about whether that was appropriate, but also the people complaining about it most of them have no business complaining about it, because I've seen what you let Trump get away with.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't care.
I mean, truly,
I don't care.
The Democrat... I don't know. This is always the thing that's going to bother me, is that the Democrats play by the rules and the Republicans don't. I don't want Democrats to be more like Republicans, because the Republicans are bad and lie and cheat and steal and are racist and are sexist.
And I think what outweighs that for me is, okay, but until anyone wants to enforce the rules, then good. Go get them play by their game and let them not like it.
Yeah,
they can always change the rule. Democrats should gerrymander every single state they control
and it hurts
as much as possible.
I want so deeply to believe that, like, fair voting. Oh, God, everything's bad, Heather.
And California should break up into 7 states, each of which gets 2 senators.
We need to redivide Wisconsin, Washington, and Oregon instead of a horizontal line, a vertical line. That would be much more befitting of, like, the cultural ties there.
Idaho can take that little bit of Eastern Washington that it already wants. These are great ideas that no one will ever do. But anyway, so this dude made that video. Shriver made a video in front of the statue. And then later, during an interview on a podcast, this is also last December, Shriver said he was going to introduce a bill that will revoke the nonprofit status of groups like the Satanic Temple.
Upon what grounds?
There are no grounds. He just said, I'm going to take it away from them.
Shit?
Actually, he said he was going to take away the nonprofit status of the Church of Satan, which is a thing, but it's not the group that put up the statue.
Well, I do get those mixed up a lot, so I'm not going to bag on him too hard for that. But Jesus Christ, dog!
I went to
do
go
you have
look.
Nothing else to do in
He
Michigan?
doesn't, and I went to go look. Did he ever introduce that bill? The answer is no.
Dude.
He never introduced that bill because that would require work. He doesn't do work.
Oh yeah.
He also said he was working on another policy to make pornographic images illegal.
Boy, what is going on with shit like that? Like, what? It's so puritanical, it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. For what it's worth, a plain reading of the Constitution, several decades of case law, pick your poison, but there's no difference between different religions or religion versus non-religion. Freedom of thought is protected. What the hell is this dude talking about? If he's upset about evilness, well, the Satanist 7 fundamental tenets are pretty ethical, if you want to look at them. And then the Detroit News asked this dude this week, so why do you want to ban gay marriage? Like, why now? What's the deal?
Good question.
And his answer was, Jesus defines marriage as between a man and a woman.
Certainly didn't.
Which, again, if you want to make that argument, who cares what your Bible says? That's not how we make policy. But also, you don't seem to care about Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump, all the Republicans in power that you fully support, who are definitely not in their first marriage, having not lied or cheated or whatever it is.
According to U.S. News and World Report, Michigan is ranked number 42 in overall rankings of this state. So, I don't know.
He's not helping.
Great.
Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention this. This dude is also a fan and follower of white nationalist Nick Fuentes.
Oh.
And
I've heard of Nick Fuentes. What happened to that dum-dum?
He lives near us. He is in the suburbs of Chicago. So, this dude, here's how bad Shriver is.
Okay.
He's so racist.
How racist is he?
The answer is, this past February, Republicans in Michigan stripped this dude of all his committee posts, took away his staff, and took away his office budget because his posts online were, quote, racist, hateful, and bigoted. Do you know how bad you have to be for Republicans to say you've gone too far? And now that his party has gotten a majority in the state house, I don't know if that means he gets everything back. I don't know if they're going to reinstate him to his positions, But I will say, in response to a stupid tweet, Michigan's Attorney General, Dana Nessel, who is in a same-sex marriage herself, she responded to him by saying this: "Please explain how dissolving my marriage or that of the hundreds of thousands of other same-sex couples living in America provides a benefit to your constituents or anyone else. You're not interested in helping Michiganders. You only want to hurt those you hate. Shame on you." Which is fair. She also kind of did not point out how his faith is at the root of his bigotry.
Oh, yeah.
Not expecting her to say that, but there you go. Like, his religion taught him to be selfish and cruel, so this is what he wastes his time on.
Yeah.
He is not trying to make life better for his constituents. And the weird thing is, if this guy wants to work for God, which he clearly says he does, there are so many churches in Michigan.
So many.
But instead, he ran for a job meant to represent the people, which his constituents include people of all faiths and no faiths. And what is he doing with that? He's using his power, his platform, to advance his faith and all the harm that comes with it.
So Nick Fuentes got doxxed, huh?
He did.
I was just Googling that. Do you know what town he lives in?
Yes.
Will you tell me right now?
Nope.
Why?
No.
Write it down and I'll read it.
No. Bonus fodder.
Like, how far is it? Like, could I walk there from here?
Maybe. No, it's far.
He's only like 24 years old. He's a fetus.
I do not get why that dude has a following. Like, if you told me Joe Rogan has a lot of followers, I'm like, okay, I get the appeal to a certain group of people.
Why do people like him?
Because he's a white guy who speaks with confidence about everything and they need a leader.
I don't think he's white.
But Nick Fuentes, on the other hand.
Oh, got you.
I was talking about Rogan.
Got you.
Fuentes whines and talks like a kid who doesn't know anything, and that's what I don't get. Like, this dude doesn't strike me as even, not that these guys are ever thoughtful,
right?
But he doesn't sound like he knows what he's talking about. He literally operates out of his like parents' basement.
I think
so. I don't
LaGrange
get the
Park?
appeal.
He went to LT.
He's a local boy.
I was just at LT a couple of weeks ago. Weird.
So what you're
my
saying is you
God.
and him are like the same.
Oh my God, I have a friend who lives really
right,
close to LaGrange Park,
anyway.
and if you don't think we're going to walk around those neighborhoods with a pack of eggs, you don't know me at all. I would never vandalize. I'm too afraid of authority.
There you go. Let's talk about what's going on in New Jersey. This is a under-the-radar decision that just came down this week, but I wanted to talk about this.
And it's really good news for everybody.
So churches in New Jersey, some of them, are now going to be eligible to get public funding in the name of historic preservation because a judge said that a prohibition on that is illegal. So I'll back up.
Yeah.
I'll explain all this.
My brain just stopped
So here's
working.
what happened. We've talked about this before, but it's been a while, so I'll catch you up. Between 2012 and 2015, more than $5.5 million were given to a dozen churches in Morris County, New Jersey.
Okay.
Why did churches get that money? It was part of what the county calls historic preservation grants.
Okay.
These are churches that have been around for a really long time, and the buildings are breaking down. They need some money to help restore them because you want to preserve that culture. You want to preserve
Are they
like
generally
these buildings.
in use as well?
Well, this is the problem that it hit. Because
got
if
you.
you're saying the building used to be a church and now it's used for some other purpose, but the building's falling apart and we want to restore it. And in Morris County, we have a lot of old buildings because that's the nature of our community.
Sure.
We're setting aside money to help maintain those buildings. I do get that.
Sure.
The problem
But-
in this case is that those buildings, those churches that got the money, some of them were in use as churches.
So they
and what
shouldn't
they
be
wanted money for is fixing up the buildings that they are currently using. It's not like, hey, this is a classic stained glass thing
Right.
that we want to preserve for the sake of history, but it has nothing to do with the people in there.
Right.
Okay, I kind of get why you might want to maintain that because that's a thing that might...
piece of art, yeah.
Piece of art. It's interesting. It's historic. But if you're saying our roof is breaking, which might be true, it's an old building.
That's what tithes are for.
If you are asking, like the church should be paying for that,
Yeah.
why is the city paying for your church to fix up its building when you don't pay any taxes, right? Okay, so that's the issue. The money was given to those churches presumably legally because none of this was directly promoting faith. That was the argument they made
It was
over a
just
decade ago.
architectural thing.
Yeah. Now, I would argue that if you give churches money for general maintenance, that does promote
frees
faith
up, yeah.
because it frees up money that can go right back into worship.
And especially, I think the most important thing is that they don't pay taxes. So,
Right.
like, you didn't put into the kitty, you don't get to take out.
Right. So in 2015, a guy named David Steketee and the Freedom from Religion Foundation, they sued to put a stop to those grants. They said the state constitution bans public money from supporting religion. Long story short, they lost in the basic levels of the court system. They appealed. It eventually got in front of the New Jersey Supreme Court. And in 2018, all 7 of the justices said, yeah, you guys are totally right.
Wow.
Unanimous. They said giving taxpayer dollars to active churches is clearly a violation of the law. And they said, look, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled on issues like this. For example, famously, there was a case called Trinity Lutheran where taxpayer funds could be used for secular projects like a playground outside of a church on church property because the grants are not the grants would be supporting secular projects.
Right.
But in this case, you can't even use that as precedent because they're improving the buildings so they can be used as churches.
So kids can play on the roof safely.
Right? And so literally the Supreme Court said a number of the applications expressly stated that churches sought funding for repairs to continue to conduct worship services. So this ain't Trinity Lutheran.
Yeah.
Okay, so they said, look, it would be really hard for us to figure out how much of that grant money, the $5.5 million, went for religious purposes or non-religious purposes.
Like
it's not
across multiple locations is what you're saying?
Yeah, lots of locations. We're not going to go through every single thing they spend money on. So look, keep the grants. We're not going to make you pay them back. But from moving forward, you can't keep doing that to the county. So big victory for church-state separation.
Yeah, really.
It also would save taxpayers millions of dollars that would have otherwise gone to promoting religious dogma. Now, I should say there was an issue where the Morris County Board of Chosen Freeholders, some local group that formed, I don't know. It's a weird-ass name. They worked with a conservative group.
This reeks of sovereign citizenship.
They worked with a conservative legal group, and they tried to get the U.S. Supreme Court to take up this case. And the Supreme Court just said, no. We're not taking it up.
Why
nope.
they don't?
They just said, no, we get a lot of requests for people asking us to take up their case. We are saying no to this one. Okay. So 3 of the justices, though, Gorsuch, Alito, and Kavanaugh, said, look, we agree we should not take up this case, but it's only because you guys broke the law so badly.
Be more clever when you break the law.
That's pretty much it. They basically signaled we would love to change this law to allow tax funding to go to churches, but you guys, give us a better case to work with. Okay.
Yeah, they've done that a few times, haven't they?
So after the New Jersey Supreme Court decision, I just want to point out, like, does this mean churches are out of luck? No. After that Supreme Court decision in New Jersey, 2 other churches, like historic churches that have been around forever, which have now been converted to like community spaces.
Sure.
They applied for the same type of grant from this county and they got it. And no one complained about it.
That's appropriate.
That was fine. I should also point out, Morris County didn't want to pay FFRF's legal expenses for all this. It amounted to over $750,000 because this went on for years.
They shouldn't have broken the law if they didn't have an extra $750,000 laying around.
And eventually a judge in New Jersey said, county, pay up. And they had to pay out over $218,000. And there's reasons for why they didn't pay the full amount. But another win for FFRF, right? Like they got a bunch of legal fees paid. Okay. So 2 things happened. That was the last time we really talked about this. It's been years. 2 things happened since that whole debacle.
Good things?
First, Morris County changed how it distributed historic preservation grants. Like if you look at their application, it says religious buildings that are still in active use are ineligible for these grants.
Right.
This is important. It's Rule 5.6.4. Okay, but number 4 says, any property that is currently used for religious purposes or functions is ineligible for historic preservation grant funding. So they added that into the application. Second thing is the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, continued to tear down the wall of separation between church and state. Specifically in 2 cases, Espinoza and Carson v. Macon, they basically said if any government program gives taxpayer dollars to any kind of private institution, you cannot exclude private religious institutions. So if you're giving vouchers, you can't say no to private Christian schools that receive those vouchers, things like that. So with all that in mind, two churches decided to test those decisions and see what's going on in New Jersey. They're saying, well, the Supreme Court has said these things, so now where are you at?
The Raptors checking the fences again?
Yeah. So in 2022 and 2023, two churches applied for preservation grants in Morris County. And I'm looking at their applications right now because it's not a long application.
From what you can tell, is this motivated out of like, let's see what we can get away with? Wink,
Yes,
wink, wink.
100%.
It's not, hey, we actually need this. Let's see.
They might actually need it, but they're very much like, all right, we're the test cases.
Got
Let's
you.
go.
All right.
Their application says, like, what type of organization are you? Are you a historical society,
Community.
a museum, or a municipality? And they checked other. One of them wrote church dash currently used for worship.
Oh, okay. If I had shut my face for 30 seconds, I would have gotten the answer to my question.
Right? And they said, what do we need? We need windows re-leaded. We need a new roof. We need a bell tower reshingled and painted. Need a new chimney, furnace, repaving of the parking lot. It's all this stuff that is not worship related, but it kind of is because
Yeah,
you
it's
can't have
maintenance.
your church without that stuff. So, and the other church basically did the exact same thing. They're not asking for a ton of money. They're asking for a few $1,000 here and there, but it's the principle that counts.
Yeah.
And both times, Morris County officials said, no,
Yay!
sorry, look at our new rules. 5.6.4 says you are currently being used as a church. You can't get the money. And the churches are like, yeah, that's what we wanted you to say.
Sue.
So they sued. And they
Sue,
specifically
Sue,
cited the Supreme Court's two rulings. They even quoted Brett Kavanaugh on their complaint. Quote, simply put,
asshat.
excluding otherwise eligible religious organizations from public benefits solely because of the organization's religious exercise is pure discrimination against religion.
It's not. Brett. Hey, Brett. It's me, Jess. It's
So
not, though.
what has happened now? 1 week ago, this is a federal lawsuit because it involves Supreme Court and stuff. A U.S. district judge, who happens to be a Biden appointee, by the way, basically ruled in favor of those churches. And what she said is, listen, my hands are tied because of what the Supreme Court has said. She says Rule 5.6.4 violates the First Amendment according to the Supreme Court now. And basically said, yeah, you guys can't have a clause, 5.6.4, that says active churches cannot apply for these funds. You can't do that. So that's illegal now. The judge said you can't have that in your application process. Now, what's the consequence of that? It doesn't mean those two churches get the funding.
Yeah.
What it means is you can't just be written off because you're an active church.
Okay.
So if the county says we don't want to give you the money, you got to find a better reason
I see.
than you're a church that is currently being used.
And so they're putting them in a position of having to be a little bit...
It's like the Supreme Court said you can't
sneaky.
do affirmative action. So you got to, if you want to have a more diverse student body, you got to find a better reason to
Yeah.
accept kids you might not otherwise accept. And that just requires a lot of runarounds, which, for better or for worse, that's what they're forcing a lot of colleges to do if they want to get a different, not just ethnic diversity, racial diversity, but class diversity.
I think
things
maybe
like
white
that.
people shouldn't be in charge of things anymore. We haven't done a great job in the last 1,000 or so years.
Tell them at your next meeting.
Fine.
So the judge
They
also
get
pointed
so
out
drunk.
there's a slippery slope in play here because, for example, I mentioned one church wanted to fix its bell tower, but the judge said the sound of
Quasimodo lives there.
the judge said the sound of church bells instinctively brings to mind a call to Christian worshipers to convene. Like, it is something you actually need for
They're
church.
called church bells.
Like, if you're saying we
It's
want
not church roof.
Yes, but she's saying if you want to fix the parking lot, you can argue this is a secular purpose and it's not for religious worship.
'Cause
But
God
if you
doesn't like
fix the
cars.
church bells or you fix the stained glass windows, those are things that are directly affecting your worship.
Yeah.
And the judge even asked them, the lawyers for the churches, so theoretically, if I give you what you want,
Yeah.
does that mean the taxpayers could theoretically one day have to pay for repairs for your pews, which enforce gendered seating? women on one side, men on the other? Is it possible that you could say, well, our pews are in disarray. We need funding. It's a historic building. But we need the money to fix those pews so we can have men on one side, women on the other, which would violate discrimination laws.
Is that a real thing that churches still do?
Some churches, yeah. So
Oh,
is it
boy.
possible taxpayers would have to pay for that stuff?
And?
Or they could get money for that? And what the lawyer said is, yeah, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, we love not sitting with ladies.
And the judge
I'm
wrote-
assuming the lawyers are men.
And the judge wrote, naturally, the court is concerned with such a broad interpretation. So she said, the state can reject grants that support just like pure religious iconography, fix our stained glass windows. They can absolutely say no to fixing that stuff. But if you're asking for broader things,
Your roof
fix our roof,
fixed,
fix our
yeah.
parking lot, the county cannot say no to you just because you're a church. And what happens from there, I don't know. It doesn't mean the churches get the grants, but now they will be eligible to apply. And that means if a historic museum with maintenance needs might have received the money,
Nope.
a church might be able to get that money.
Sucks to suck museum.
And that means taxpayers in Morris County are now on the hook, possibly to the tune of millions of dollars, for the upkeep of older churches that are still being used today, even if that money goes toward maintaining faith-based segregation.
And even though that money was not, like, they did not put into the kitty and they're taking out.
Yeah, they're not paying taxes
They're
on
not
this. They're
paying
just
property
taking.
taxes. They're not.
So FFRF pointed out that
Hey, Hammett, I think organized religion is pretty bad.
it can be.
That's my hot take for the day.
The Freedom from Religion told me they believe the current Rule 564 is constitutional, given that New Jersey has a well-established historic interest in avoiding compelled taxpayer support of churches. And I asked David Steketee, who was the plaintiff in that case years ago, what did you think? And basically, he said this is just a further erosion. He said it would represent yet another chip in the wall of separation if this ruling stands. I don't know if the county is going to push back on this, if they're going to fight this. They didn't seem eager to fight it the last time. But that's where we're at. And that, again, it's not big news. It didn't make a lot of headlines, but I think that one's important.
And this was New Jersey?
That was in New Jersey, but it's a federal case, so it could be appealed. It could go in front of the Supreme Court eventually.
I mean, if that case goes to the Supreme Court, there's no way we're winning.
No, definitely
That
not.
is not a winnable case, and not with this Supreme
Not with this court.
It's too vague. Oh, God. Okay, what else?
What else? I'll give you a happier story. So the war on Christmas has started.
Oh, my God, I missed the first meeting. Okay, tell me
But
everything.
this is
What did
interesting.
I miss?
The American Humanist Association has just launched an ad campaign where they're bringing back the war on Christmas. And the first time I heard that, I'm like, really? We're still doing this? Like 10, 15 years later? But this
Does
is
Fox
interesting.
think we're still doing it?
Does
If
Fox-
Fox think
I
we're
mean,
still doing
if
it, then
they-
we're still doing it.
If Fox doesn't note your war on Christmas efforts, it's did a tree fall in the woods?
That's
Did anyone hear
exactly
it? Right. But in this case, they're specifically targeting Ron DeSantis. And they're basically saying,
The Florida governor?
yeah, is he actually the Grinch? Because let's look at the facts.
Is he green? I missed it?
There is a picture of a green Ron DeSantis. But in their ad campaign, they specifically call out Ron DeSantis for rejecting federal funding that could help low-income families buy groceries. That's something he did. He kicked kids off their health insurance.
Sure.
And he refused federal hurricane funding because it basically involved acknowledging climate change.
Oh, don't you hate that?
So they've set
Florida's
up a
going to
website.
be underwater, and DeSantis is going to be like, no, keep your money, federal government. Everybody can swim here in Florida.
What's scarier to think about
Have
is
you seen Waterworld? We loved that flick.
Ron DeSantis could become the replacement for Pete Hegseth for the Department of Defense. And then he would be out of Florida and he could hurt everybody.
Who's Pete Hegseth? Why? I mean, I know, like...
Fox News guy who is rabidly drunk and like clinically so, like very much an alcoholic. And he sexually harassed everybody. And his mother's like, you're evil.
Okay, he's the one who the mom was like, you're an abuser of women?
Yes.
Okay, that was bananas.
And he's about to take over the entire military. But don't worry, his mommy now has called into Fox and said, he's fine, you guys.
Yeah, he barely even verbally abused me that one time.
And he promised a Republican senator, if you approve me, you guys, I'll stop drinking. That is a real thing that happened.
Yeah, addiction works that way, for sure.
Which
you know when
implies-
somebody gets a really big promotion and all of a sudden has a lot more pressure on their shoulders? That's usually when people give up their vices, right?
Yeah. And that implies he's like, just don't worry about the sexual harassment, but I'll stop drinking if you approve me. And also, they asked, like, Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, he's like, what, these anonymous allegations against him? And the anchor was like, well, the reason the woman can't speak out against this is because Hegseth made her sign an NDA. So do you support him releasing her from that NDA so she could go public?
No.
To which Rick Scott said no. And also...
So what would he like to happen? Everybody shut up and go away?
Yes. And Hegseth, my favorite comment on this is Hegseth believes women should not be in combat, and yet he's calling on his mother to do all his battles for him. Anyway, he might not even go over with this Republican Senate, but if he goes down in flames, it's possible Trump gets Ron DeSantis to take that position instead, which is a whole separate story, which we can get to later. But back to this advertising campaign.
Movie.
Yeah. So they've set up, the AHA has set up a website. It's ronswaronchristmas.com. And they're basically saying Ron DeSantis has created a war on Christmas by ruining the holidays for so many Florida families who can't afford the nice things other people have.
Like this little girl could have gotten a bike, but instead she died from a preventable illness because she wasn't insured?
Or she could have gotten health care, but Ron DeSantis took that away from people. Specifically, he refused $250 million in federal funding to help hungry, low-income kids. He ended insurance coverage for thousands of kids enrolled in Florida Kid Care, like the Medicare provision, all that stuff.
So brave, such a brave man.
The AHA is not.
Is that where all this
doing the
money
war
is
on
coming from?
Christmas.
That's why he's rejecting national funds? Because he's like, oh, we'll take it out of the pockets of babies.
Yeah, pretty much. So the AHA
He's like
is
creeping in your house at night and stealing your diapers and selling them on the black market.
There you go. We're going to need it.
I do like that. I'm enjoying this.
So I appreciate they're not
DeSantis
actually using... Back in the day when they did War on Christmas stuff, it was usually, here's why atheists are right. It's Christmas. We'll get publicity for this. Do you remember those old billboards from American Atheists? You know it's a myth. This season, celebrate reason. Or just skip church. It's all fake news.
Oh, yeah.
Or make Christmas great again. Skip church.
Ooh.
Or,
I liked the pre-Trump one.
Dear Santa, all I want for Christmas is to skip church. I'm too old for fairy tales. Those were actual American Atheist billboards under the old regime.
That's not my jam, but whatever.
Yeah. So the AHA is not doing that. They're specifically saying Ron DeSantis is the guy who declared the war on Christmas by ruining it for so many people. And what they're doing in response is they're saying, look, they're taking donations for this campaign.
American Atheist?
American Humanist
Humanist
Association. And they're saying 100% of the donations you give to us after like credit card fees will go toward toys, books, and other essentials to help families that need them.
Oh, good.
Because Ron DeSantis isn't doing any of that shit. What they're going to do is whatever money they get for this campaign, they will distribute it to AHA chapters in Florida, and they'll have the ability to donate it to local shelters, kids' charities, other nonprofits, and there's no proselytizing involved. There's no conversion efforts like you see with Franklin Graham's shit. And again, if you've been around for a while in this movement, in big quote hands, and you remember what those old War on Christmas billboards were like,
Yeah.
I kind of do appreciate that. You know, those were good for media attention, but it doesn't actually help anyone, much less the less fortunate.
And that's not what we need anymore.
And yeah, this AHA campaign is a sharp contrast with DeSantis's cruelty.
Yeah.
The executive director of the AHA, Fish Stark, he told me they're going to run digital ads.
Fish Stark?
Yeah, we've talked about him.
Oh. Wait, is Nick Fish and Fish Stark two different people?
That's right. There are two fishes in the organized movement now.
Oh, God.
It's okay.
My brain. Okay, go ahead. Yeah,
There are
got
other
it. Two
fishes
fishes.
in the sea.
Did you know there's no such thing as a fish? There's like no no technical definition of a fish.
This is news to me.
No, it's a true story. It's a true thing.
Tell me more.
I mean,
in the
that's
bonus.
all I know.
They're also
now we both know the same amount about it.
excellent. They're also, so not only are they doing digital ads online, they're taking out full page ads in the Tallahassee Democrat, which is DeSantis' local paper. Now the question is, will he take the bait? And will any journalists cover that pushback? Because he's going to see this.
So. I think people are kind of wrapped around themselves with the incoming Trump of it all.
Yeah, and that's the downside. Again, tree falls in the woods. They're putting out this stuff.
Yeah.
They're trying to bait him into responding.
What do you think? What's best case scenario?
Best case scenario, Ron DeSantis puts out some sort of social media post saying, look at what these evil, evil atheists are doing and they're lying about me. And great, more opportunity to talk about what he's done versus what the humanists are doing.
Gotcha.
So there you go. I mean, at a time when Christian nationalists have so much power, I think it is important to remind people that humanists are more concerned with helping others than scoring cheap points over the holidays. And you would think politicians would also be in that fight, but that's not what happens in Florida because of Republican control.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
All right, I got another good news story for you.
Cool.
Good news, disturbing news? No, it's interesting. So the UK House of Commons, you'll hear it. You'll hear it.
I'm excited.
The UK House of Commons this week, they have taken the first big step to passing a bill that would allow some terminally ill people to end life on their own terms instead of suffering needlessly because the law says you must stay alive against your will, even if you're dying.
Yeah, freedom.
Freedom. So this is a controversial piece of legislation for all the obvious reasons.
So this is UK?
Yeah.
Okay.
End of life care, obviously, elderly people. And the amazing thing is when they were debating this under the new government and the Labour Party, the Labour Party said, we're not going to whip votes on this. We are not going to tell you how to vote. We're not going to punish you if you vote a certain way. Vote your conscience.
Wow, that's actually very...
And the other side, the Tories did the same thing. They're like, we're not going to punish you for how you vote. This is not a deal breaker for us. Vote how you want to. So people didn't actually know necessarily how this was going to go because anyone could do whatever they wanted. And the vote was 330 to 275 in favor of moving on to the next step. It's like the U.S. House voting to pass a bill. It still's got to go through the Senate and all these other hurdles, but it passed.
A comfortable margin.
By a comfortable margin. And that happened after 5 hours of debate. And now it'll be scrutinized by politicians and committees, and then different amendments can be proposed. I don't know if this bill becomes law, but it's a big deal. Let me tell you about this bill. Okay. This is called the Terminally Ill Adults Bill or the End of Life Bill. It applies to only a handful of individuals. They have to be over 18. They have to be diagnosed with an illness that will end their life within 6 months.
Oh.
Very end of life care. We know you're going to die. Doctors say you're going to die.
So we're not talking about somebody who has ALS and probably has another 10 years in them until their body begins shutting down, essentially.
The doctors have said this person will not make it past 6 more months. It only applies to them. 2 doctors and a judge have to sign off on the request to end this person's life because they wanted it. And they have to do those at least 7 days apart.
Oh, that makes sense.
Which is sensible, but it does prolong the suffering even more.
Sure.
And this is key. The medication that these people take has to be self-administered, which means
oh my God, if
you don't have the ability to give yourself the pill.
That's weirdly ableist for a
Yes, it is. And that is an argument that came up. So this is a very narrow bill that applies to a handful of people. And the reason for all those requirements is to make sure people who are just depressed or old or, and this has come up in debate, pressured by people close to them to end your life for shady reasons, whether it's insurance money or you're putting too much responsibility on us to take care of you, so we wish you would end your life. There are people arguing that people will end their life because they're a burden on their family.
I mean, I guess there's a point that it's if your family is bullying you because you're ill, that fucking sucks.
Yes.
However, there is a point that I get to decide what quality of life is. And if I feel like everybody in my family has lost all of their ability to be regular humans because all they do is take care of me, I don't know. Is that a worse reason than I'm in pain? Because mental pain is not.
So the question is, what bill can you pass that gives some people the freedom to take this into their own hands, versus not letting anyone slip through who shouldn't be slipping through in the government's mind. What's
there's
happening?
a lot of fail-safes in place.
So many. What's happening right now, though, and this is the argument for passing this bill, is that a lot of people in these positions are just flying to a place like Switzerland where it's legal to do this stuff. And they're saying, why are we forcing these people to travel when they're dying and suffering? Why are we putting them through even more obstacles? Just give them the freedom to do this here.
Sounds very familiar to the abortion debate.
And so one proponent of the bill urged politicians to vote for it because the only current options for the people who need help right now are, quote, suffering, Switzerland, or suicide.
Wow.
In England and Wales, assisting someone, if you're a doctor who wants to end life, could put you in jail for 14 years. Another reason to pass it.
When are we going to have a public re-reckoning of Dr. Kevorkian?
We have 87,000 other priorities at the moment.
I feel like that's coming soon, though, of like, I think Dr. Kevorkian, the name was just so in the 90s synonymous with like Death Doctor. But I feel, even at the time, I was like, I'm like 10 years old, like, oh, they want to die, I can die.
True story. When I was in medical school for 3.5 minutes, I had to do a presentation on end-of-life care.
Oh, God.
And his name came up, and I realized, my understanding of him is limited to what I, as a child, heard about in the 90s, which was bad. And then you're looking up the stuff he was advocating for. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This actually makes sense to put patients in control of their suffering.
Of their lives.
And I don't think my presentation went over very well.
Really? Is that why you dropped out?
No.
Because you couldn't get a laugh line in your medical class?
Pretty much. But the amazing thing is,
I can't imagine you as a doctor, like talking to somebody like, dude, your heart. I don't know,
my
man.
bedside manner would be so bad.
So bad.
Right?
I could see you as a surgeon, though, just like going in there. My friend who's a surgeon, I was like, aren't you afraid you're going to kill somebody? She's like, I'm a hand surgeon. If somebody dies on my table, it is not my fault. And I wish I could have that confidence in anything.
The amazing thing is public support for this bill is overwhelming. Very few people are opposed to this.
Really?
Yeah.
So why do you think there's a public split between public and politics?
Because a
It's
lot
icky?
of politicians are like, you're going to let... It's very easy to use some talking points to say,
Fair.
and they did this in the abortion debate too.
Sure.
Like, you've heard this, Democrats wanted infanticide after the baby's born.
Right.
Like, they pick and choose the most extreme possibilities.
This 23-year-old girl has mono. We're going to kill her.
Right. And that's kind of what the conservatives are doing in this case.
So are they generally just kind of unserious arguments?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want to say it's a legitimate argument that some people may feel pressure to say they want to end their life,
Then fail stop.
then we got to talk about amendments. That's fine. But to say this bill should not be passed is cruel. So the Humanists UK, the leader of that group, said they celebrated the vote.
Good.
Parliament has taken a historic first step to meet the aspirations of the public, who overwhelmingly support having choice, dignity, and compassion at the end of their lives. We welcome this and look forward to working further on the legislation. And the vote shows that members of Parliament see the need to introduce real safeguards to our law where there are currently none.
Wow. Interesting.
Incidentally, one of the who's against this, the Catholic Church, naturally,
Well.
they said, no, what we need is high quality palliative care. We just need better care for those patients.
Do you think that we've been like resting on our laurels vis-a-vis palliative care? Like,
Yeah.
I think we're still doing that, dog. Like,
And
I
look at
don't.
the people we're talking about. These are not just elderly people in some pain.
Yeah.
These
This
are
is-
people who have no other
who are
option.
literally dying in front of you.
Yeah, there were some Tories called for, like, we just need to improve the National Health Service in the UK. The same people who have spent decades underfunding it and destroying it from the inside are like, you guys, why don't we just try to fund them more and help them out?
Very much we don't have a gun problem. We have a mental illness problem. But
Right.
let's go ahead and shut down all those.
Here's what's amazing. Most Labour Party members, I should say, many Labour Party members oppose this bill, which is surprising.
Labour Party members.
Yes.
Really?
You would think they would support this fully, but
It
a lot
feels
of them
like a very liberal
voting with their conscience
go-to.
said no. But a lot of Tories did vote for this bill, and that includes former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak.
Really?
Yeah, because again, they weren't punished for voting a certain way, and they were allowed to vote however they wanted. So they said, a couple of them were like, all right, I support this, at least for the first steps. We will see what happens when amendments are proposed and all that. But there you go.
Wow. That I really think when we talk about end of life care and abortion care, I think one of the things that politicians must trip on is that it's unpleasant and nobody wants to think about, oh my God, I have 6 months to live. Like how can I take control? Nobody wants to think about, oh, I got pregnant unexpectedly. Mm-hmm. What am I going to do now? And we as human beings are so good at compartmentalizing and thinking it will never happen to me and it'll never happen to my family. It's gonna.
Yeah.
And you can't pretend it away.
I got one last story for you.
All right, hit me.
This involves a Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who is wildly cruel and corrupt and was impeached by House Republicans in Texas last year.
Whoa.
And only kept his job because the MAGA Senate Republicans in Texas were like, we like cruelty. One. Yeah, so he is suing a homeless shelter because he says they are operating a taxpayer-funded drug paraphernalia giveaway next to an elementary school. So he's going after a homeless shelter that he says is a magnet for drugs and crime. And he specifically says they offer syringes to the people who are unhoused. And if he wins in court, the shelter would shut down. I'll explain in a second. Oh, it's like a clean needle program. It is. And what's interesting about the lawsuit, though, is that the ministry that he's trying to shut down is responding by saying, oh, but we're religious and we have a religious right to assist others because that's what our religion teaches us to do. Uh-huh. So you have the Christian nationalist MAGA Attorney General trying to shut down a Christian-operated homeless shelter, and they're both fighting, saying, we have a religious right to do the thing we do. So a Christian nationalist with power is trying to shut down a church ministry that wants to help the least of these while basically highlighting a problem that Republicans have made worse.
Boy.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy.
So here's what's going on. According to the Ken Paxton lawsuit, the unhoused people that make use of this shelter, they are, and I'm quoting through the lawsuit, they are urinating, defecating, fornicating, fighting, and leaving needles in the area. And that is bad. Mm-hmm. And that is all made worse because it's right next to an elementary school. Now, the Austin City Council has given this ministry, because of the work they do with secular, they've given them over $2.5 million to do the work they do since 2021. And that's where Ken Paxton's stepping in, saying taxpayer money is being used to fund this facility. Mm-hmm. We don't want that to happen. In Sunrise's own words, Sunrise is the name of the shelter. They've converted the area into a steady home base for this dangerous, drug-addled homeless population. The result is predictable and devastating for the local economy.
I mean, they know that these unhoused people are also like whole-ass human beings who, like, if they were housed, maybe could have a little better
just like Texas treats refugees.
Of life.
Yeah.
So I hate it's so dehumanizing, obviously, on its face.
That is the point. Yep.
Of like, oh, this homelessness problem. It's not homelessness. It's the fact that we have no social services and
I'm guessing Texas Republicans are not in the game of trying to make social services better.
No. So they just want those people to die?
Yes. Ken Paxton said the ministry has enriched itself with the public money. There was no evidence in the lawsuit of anyone getting wealthy off of it or that they were not using their money appropriately. And he also said the ministry is basically tolerating the drug use by offering syringes. But let's talk about that for a second. Like, why would they be handing out clean syringes to drug users?
Because...
Do you want to give it a shot?
Oh, why do people need clean needles?
Yes.
Because of germ theory?
Yes. That's basically it. If people are struggling with substance abuse, they're not going to magically stop doing drugs cold turkey.
No, that's not true. That guy said that if he's Attorney General or whatever, he'll stop drinking. So
that is true.
There is...
Everyone except Hegseth is not going to magically just stop being addicted to stuff, they will find a way to get that stuff. And they will use whatever needles they can get their hands on to inject those drugs into their bodies, which not only hurts themselves, it could hurt others indirectly because, like you said, germ theory, because the spread of diseases when you're passing needles around. By offering people sterile, clean needles, the CDC has noted this, it can reduce the risk of infection and prevent outbreaks. And those programs are proven and effective. And it doesn't encourage drug use. It's about harm reduction. Okay, so that's why they offer these needles. Now, if people are discarding those needles somewhere, that's a separate issue, which is absolutely a problem. But like, Ken Paxton's lawsuit spends dozens of pages describing all the ways people in the community are disturbed by the unhoused population that Sunrise is helping, but he has no plan B to help them out. No. He wants to shut down this ministry without offering an alternative, which means those people are not going to, let's say you shut down the ministry. Those people are not going to go away. They're still people. They'll find somewhere else to go, but now with fewer resources and more of a hazard, because they will just have to find other ways to get their fix. And rather than helping the victims, Paxton and Republicans want to punish the people taking on that role.
Wasn't there some mayor or governor who like just put a bunch of homeless people on a bus and sent them to other cities?
That would be Greg Abbott.
Greg Abbott, yeah,
in Texas.
That's right. That's classy. That's what I like. Is that
DeSantis did it too?
Well, yeah, because you guys live in warm states that it's easier to be unhoused in. So kind of get used to it because, especially you, DeSantis, looking at you, lots of people going to be living on their houseboat soon. Florida is sinking.
It is.
See you never, Florida.
So Paxton wants to shut down this ministry, this homeless shelter,
and let hopefully all those people die, haven't.
That's his goal. And let city officials in this blue part of the state figure it out from there. I should say, the city has looked at 2 other locations for setting up shelters, but there's no timeline on when they'll be up and running, which means for the time being, if you shut down this shelter, it's only going to make the unhoused crisis worse because of GOP intervention. And of course, Republicans will then blame Democrats when the problem gets worse because all these people are in a city that people actually want to live in.
Well, it's important for Republicans to make sure people know that actions have consequences, right? If you choose to pick up a heroin needle, you deserve what you get. If you choose to deny people health care coverage, you get what you get, you know? Shit happens.
Yeah,
Deal with the consequences of your life.
Earlier this year, Paxton sued a Catholic ministry that helps refugees, but the ministry prevailed for reasons that have nothing to do with their religion. Like they won that lawsuit, and now Paxton has appealed that case to the Texas Supreme Court. But the lawsuit angered people, even some people who might otherwise support conservative causes.
Really?
Like the Catholic bishop who serves Dallas and El Paso condemned the attempt by Paxton to shut down this place. This guy is the chair of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Migration Committee.
Whoa.
And the USCCB are the people who make the rules for like Catholic hospitals.
Yeah.
Very conservative group of people. But even he condemned Greg Abbott's racist projects, including multi-billion-dollar efforts to challenge the Biden administration.
What specifically are racist projects? Is this
probably the taking the refugees and busing them up to different cities and stuff like that?
I forgot they were brown, probably.
But the lawsuit criticizes Sunrise. Paxton's lawsuit criticizes this shelter for trying to help people with nowhere else to go, even when they're all creating problems, all while going to the police for help. Check this out. This is what Paxton said. Although Sunrise appears to call police when one of its homeless clients physically threatens them, it nevertheless continues to serve those same violent clients if they reappear sometime after their arrest. So there are homeless people who come to the shelter.
The lack of empathy
so much
that is being demonstrated by these people is fucking disgusting.
Yeah. So someone would come there, maybe create a public disturbance, and instead of just sending them off to jail, the ministry said, well, we're going to help you. But if they create a problem in the community, they go to the police or something, and they have said something to an officer like, yeah, this guy has a history of committing crimes. We've been providing services to this guy for a number of years. And we know this guy. By the way, police, we also know where he goes after he commits some of these crimes, so we can help you out with this. And basically, Paxton is saying they still help these criminals, which makes the criminalizing worse.
They really love to pick and choose what are terrible crimes, don't they? Like rape, sexual assault. Fine, no big deal.
The ministry actually calls out state officials and why the crisis is bad in the first place. What's causing homelessness in many cities? Gentrification, systemic racism, lack of access to medical and mental health care, breakdown of families, substance abuse, lack of affordable housing, lack of a social safety net, domestic violence, foster care system, re-entry from incarceration, and more. And ... The political reality of living in a very left-leaning city in a very right-leaning state means political solutions are often problematic. And this lawsuit is a perfect example of that. Republicans have not addressed those root causes, and now they're going after the people trying to handle the consequences that Republicans have made worse.
It's ironic that the Republicans have been so good at playing the long game when it comes to separation of church and state things, abortion things, gay marriage things. But, like, they truly are faced with homelessness, and they're like, I have no idea. Like, Newt Gingrich organized a 3-decade-long campaign to overturn Roe v. Wade. I bet you guys can figure it out if you put your little peanut heads to it.
You have a brain cell, get together, do one of those Captain Planet, like all
with
of you
the
join
rings.
forces.
I've got a monkey.
Use it for your cell.
Yeah.
By the way, I was thinking about behavioral disorder students, kids who have behavioral disorders in school, because they're hard to work with, but you have professionals in public schools who are specifically equipped to work with those kids.
That's what my brother does.
I think if Ken Paxton had his way, those kids would just be expelled instead of handling them, dealing with them, forming a bond with them, trying to help them, in a sense, rehabilitate. But that means if you did what he wants to do and just don't deal with them, they broke the rules, they're out, all the issues would still be there, but now it would be a lot harder to manage. And that's what they're trying to do with this homelessness crisis in Texas. Let's go after the people doing the help.
I want to see a chart of good Christian stuff and bad Christian stuff, or good crimes and bad crimes, because apparently being unhoused and addicted to drugs is a big crime, but apparently fraud, theft, murder, etc., not so much of an issue. That's an interesting thing to prey on, haven't?
There you go. That's all I got for you. What are we talking about in the bonus? I'm going to tell you about movies I've watched.
Oh, multiple movies.
I know. It was a long Thanksgiving break.
Oh, yeah. I am planning a trip to Nashville in January. I'd like to talk about that. And I recently started watching King of the Hill for the first time. I was texting Hemant. Sometimes I make Hemant explain things to me when I don't understand them. I'll text him at like 2 a.m. and be like, explain this joke to me. And he always responds immediately, which is worrying. Anyway, I've been watching that and enjoying it. It took me a second to get on board. But now I'm liking it. Do you want to tell us what movies you're going to talk about or not?
I've watched a bunch of the August Wilson plays.
Did you? Fences and...
Yeah. And The Piano Lesson is the new one. And I also decided to watch Princess Bride because it just escaped me my entire childhood. And there's too many references to it. So
a lot of references
all right,
to it.
I'll
and
go
you're going
watch
to hear
the
more
source.
and more and more as you...
Sure.
What's the word for that when you learn Bader-Meinhof effect?
No idea.
Is that the one where you learn a word and then you hear it everywhere? You can leave us a review on iTunes or wherever.
And go to patreon.com/friendlyatheist podcast to support the show. What does the reviews say?
It says, my God, this is from --C. I don't have words. Jess is my favorite. I don't know if she can explain friendship to Hemant. I don't know if she can explain friendship to Hemant more than what is clearly one of the greatest friendships. The two of them are absolutely magic. They both bring such heartfelt thoughts in such different ways. I'm going to push back on Hemant being heartfelt, but
close enough.
I certainly appreciate it. These have been really nice reviews. Thank you, guys. The one I read last week. I read to a lot of people because it meant a lot to me.
That's nice.
Okay, so
All right,
we
we'll
will
see you next week. Bye.